When her husband lost his job, she called him useless and filed for divorce. But months later, he became her new boss's billionaire partner. They say a woman's love is tested when her man loses everything. But for Melissa Carter, that test didn't last long. When her husband Daniel lost his six-figure job in downtown Chicago, she didn't see a man who needed love. She saw a liability. Within weeks, she called him useless, filed for divorce, and ran into the arms of her wealthy boss, believing she was trading up for a life of comfort, luxury, and status. What Melissa didn't know was that fate was quietly watching and preparing a lesson that would turn her laughter into silence and her pride into dust. Because the same man she humiliated, the one she left in a small one-bedroom apartment with nothing but a broken heart and a second-hand laptop, would rise again, higher than she ever imagined. Months later, Daniel would walk into her office, not as a desperate ex-husband, not as an applicant, but as the new billionaire partner of the company where her new husband worked. And what happened in that boardroom would change everything. But before the world saw his revenge, came the night that broke him and made him. Now, let's go back to where it all began. Useless. That's what you are now, Daniel. A grown man with no job. I'm not carrying you anymore. Daniel Carter never thought his own wife would say that to his face. 3 months ago, he was the steady one, senior project manager at a tech firm in downtown Chicago. Solid salary, health insurance, a good 401k. The kind of man who paid the mortgage on time and talked about long-term investments. He wasn't flashy, but he was dependable. The man every woman said they wanted. Then came the layoffs. Corporate restructure. Nothing personal, they said, handing him a severance check that couldn't even cover 3 months' rent. At first, Melissa comforted him. We'll figure it out, babe. You're smart, you'll bounce back. But her tone changed. The phone calls in private, the extra hours at the office, the sighs when bills arrived. Daniel noticed them all. And tonight, she finally said it. I can't be married to a man with no direction, she said coldly. Ethan respects ambition. Ethan builds things. You just sit here and wait. Daniel blinked. Who's Ethan? My boss, she replied, lowering her eyes. And soon, my fiancé. She slid the divorce papers across the table. Sign them. The next morning, the apartment felt colder, quieter, almost like the walls themselves were mourning. Melissa was gone. Her side of the closet, once full of pastel blouses and perfume, was empty. Only a faint trace of her lavender scent lingered in the air, taunting him. Daniel sat on the couch, staring at the divorce papers still on the table. He hadn't signed them yet. Maybe part of him still hoped she'd walk back through the door, apologize, say she'd made a mistake. But deep down, he knew Melissa was never coming back. A knock pulled him from his thoughts. It was his younger brother, Chris, holding 2 cups of coffee. You look like hell, man, he said, walking in without waiting. Daniel tried to smile. Guess I've seen better days. Chris glanced around the bare apartment and sighed. She really left? Daniel nodded slowly. Yeah, she said I was holding her back. Chris sat beside him. Then let her go, Dan. You built your life once. You can do it again. Maybe this time bigger. Daniel stared at the ceiling. Bigger, he repeated softly. Yeah, maybe that's exactly what I need to do. And for the first time in weeks, something inside him stirred, resolve. 2 months later, Daniel's life looked nothing like it used to. Gone were the polished shoes and office suits, replaced by sneakers, late nights, and endless cups of coffee. He'd sold his car, downgraded his apartment, and poured everything he had left into an idea that kept him awake at night. A software platform that helped small businesses automate operations without expensive developers. It wasn't glamorous, but it was something he believed in. Every morning, Daniel worked from a small co-working space downtown, surrounded by dreamers half his age. They laughed at his age, his divorce, his startup idea. But he didn't care. One afternoon, a woman approached him after hearing his pitch during an open founders session. Her name was Rebecca Langford, a venture capitalist known for backing underdogs. I like your mind, she told him. You're building something practical, not flashy. People need that. Daniel blinked. Are you saying? I'm saying, she interrupted with a smile, I want in. But I don't invest in ideas. I invest in people. And you? You've got the grit most founders lack. For the first time since losing everything, Daniel felt a spark of hope. Then let's build something that matters, he said. Meanwhile, life had never looked shinier for Melissa. She'd moved into a luxury condo overlooking Lake Michigan, marble floors, skyline view, and a ring on her finger that sparkled louder than her conscience. Her new man, Ethan Blake, was everything Daniel wasn't: bold, rich, and unapologetically ambitious. The kind of man who made deals over champagne breakfasts and called his assistant at midnight without guilt. At first, Melissa felt like she'd won. New wardrobe, new car, new title at work, Vice President of Client Relations. She told herself this was what she deserved. But deep down, cracks began to show. Ethan was charming in public, but cold in private. He canceled dinner dates for meetings, answered her questions with one-word replies, and spoke to her like a junior employee instead of a partner. One night, during a company gala, she overheard him tell a colleague, "Melissa's just a good face for the brand." She froze, champagne glass in hand. For a moment, she wanted to storm out, but pride wouldn't let her. So she smiled through it, pretending everything was perfect. She had traded love for luxury and found herself lonelier than ever. By the start of the next year, Daniel Carter was no longer the man everyone pitied. His small startup, TaskLinks, had exploded in popularity among small businesses across the country. What began as late-night coding sessions turned into national demand. Companies from New York to San Francisco wanted in. Rebecca's investment firm doubled down, bringing in new partners, tech engineers, and a professional PR team. Within 8 months, TaskLinks had grown from a 2-person idea to a multi-million-dollar platform, attracting serious attention from corporate giants. But Daniel didn't celebrate, not yet. He remembered Melissa's words every time he saw another contract signed. "You've become my problem." One day, Rebecca walked into his office holding a stack of documents. "Daniel," she said, smiling, "you won't believe this. There's a merger proposal on the table. A major one." Daniel looked up. "Who's the company?" Rebecca grinned. "Blake and Turner Enterprises, the real estate investment firm out of Chicago. The CEO's name is Ethan Blake." Daniel finished quietly, his lips curling into a small, knowing smile. For a moment, the room went silent. "Do you want to meet him?" Rebecca asked. Daniel leaned back, eyes steady. "Oh, I'd love to." The following week, the elevator doors opened to the 41st floor of Blake and Turner Enterprises. Daniel stepped out, dressed in a crisp navy suit, the same color he wore the day he lost his old job. Only this time, his stride carried power. Inside the conference room, Ethan Blake sat at the head of the table, surrounded by executives. Beside him was Melissa, looking every bit the polished corporate wife, elegant, composed, and blissfully unaware of who was about to walk in. "Mr. Carter, welcome," Ethan said, rising with a confident smile. "I've heard great things about TaskLinks. Rebecca speaks highly of you." Daniel shook his hand firmly. "Pleasure's mine, Mr. Blake. I've heard a lot about you, too." Melissa's pen froze mid-note. Her eyes lifted slowly, and the color drained from her face. For a split second, Daniel almost felt pity. Almost. As the meeting began, Ethan launched into numbers and projections, boasting about future partnerships. Daniel listened calmly, glancing occasionally at Melissa, who couldn't meet his eyes. When it was his turn to speak, Daniel smiled faintly and said, "Before we proceed, there's one small update. TaskLinks isn't merging with Blake and Turner. We're acquiring it." The room fell silent. For a moment, the room was frozen. The only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioner as every executive turned to look at Daniel in disbelief. Ethan blinked, his confident grin faltering. "I'm sorry, did you just say acquiring?" Daniel leaned forward calmly. "That's right. TaskLinks is buying a controlling stake in Blake and Turner. Paperwork's already with your board." Melissa's jaw tightened. "That can't be true," she whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel turned toward her, his tone calm but cutting. "You'd be surprised what a useless man can do when no one's watching." Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced down, and the color drained from his face. It was real. TaskLinks had finalized the deal. Rebecca, sitting beside Daniel, smiled professionally. "Effective immediately, Mr. Carter will serve as co-chairman. We're restructuring operations, starting at the top." Melissa's throat went dry. She couldn't look at either of them. Daniel stood. "Don't worry," he said quietly. "I'm not here to ruin anyone. Just to remind some people that every fall has a purpose." Then he nodded to Rebecca and walked out, leaving a stunned silence behind him. Melissa sat frozen, tears threatening. For the first time, she felt small. That night, Melissa waited outside the company's glass tower, the cool Chicago wind cutting through her silk dress. She'd left the gala early, unable to fake another smile. When Daniel finally emerged, she ran toward him. "Daniel, please wait," she cried. He stopped but didn't turn around. "What do you want, Melissa?" She swallowed hard, her voice breaking. I didn't know you'd become this. I thought you would stay broken," he finished, finally facing her. "You made sure I did. You didn't just leave me, Melissa. You buried me alive." Tears filled her eyes. "I was scared. I didn't think you'd ever get back up." Daniel's voice softened, but only slightly. "You didn't have to believe in me, but you didn't have to destroy me, either." She took a trembling step closer. "Can we start over? I made a mistake." He shook his head slowly. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice." For a long moment, silence hung between them, full of memories, regrets, and words that could never be undone. Then he said quietly, "Goodbye, Melissa," and walked toward the waiting car. She stood there, crying softly, watching the man she once called useless drive away as a billionaire. Weeks passed, and the glow around Melissa's life dimmed fast. The merger had changed everything. New leadership, new rules, and new scrutiny. Daniel didn't fire her, but his presence haunted every hallway. Her new husband, Ethan, wasn't taking it well either. His arrogance turned to desperation as his authority crumbled under Daniel's calm command. One morning, Ethan burst into her office, slamming the door behind him. "Do you know what he's doing?" he barked. "He's pushing me out. That nobody is taking everything from me." Melissa flinched. "Ethan, calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down," he snapped, pacing. "You said he was finished. You said he'd never get back up." Before she could respond, the phone rang. HR. Her position had been dissolved as part of organizational restructuring. Her hands trembled as she hung up. "They're letting me go," she whispered. Ethan scoffed bitterly. "Welcome to the club," he muttered before storming out. Melissa sat there in silence, staring at the skyline she once admired. Everything she'd traded love for, the luxury, the status, the pride, was gone. All she had left was regret and the memory of the man who once asked for nothing but her faith. Months later, a charity gala filled the same ballroom where Melissa once paraded on Ethan's arm. This time, she stood quietly near the back, wearing a simple black dress, no glitter, no spotlight. Life had humbled her. Across the room, Daniel stood surrounded by investors and media. He looked different now, confident, peaceful, complete. But when his eyes briefly met hers, something unspoken passed between them. Not love, not hatred, just closure. After the event, she found the courage to approach him. "Daniel," she said softly, "I never said thank you for not destroying me when you could have." He gave a faint smile. "Melissa, I didn't need to. Life already handled that." Tears filled her eyes. "You were a good man. I just couldn't see it." Daniel nodded slowly. "I was the same man then that I am now. The only difference is now, I believe it." He turned to leave, pausing just long enough to add, "Take care of yourself, Melissa." She watched him walk away, not with bitterness this time, but with quiet admiration. Because she finally understood, the man she once called useless had become everything she'd ever wanted without her.